Good evening, everyone, and welcome to tonight's State of Scottish Football podcast. I am Dr. Grant Campbell, and to my left-hand side, wrong hand there, is the one and only Struan Garvey. Struan, warm welcome to you.
Thank you very much. It's so confusing, isn't it, with the directions?
It is, isn't it? It is, isn't it? It's just an absolute nightmare from my left to my right. What is easier for me is pointing down the way is the one and only David Smith. David, a warm welcome to you as well.
Good evening, Grant. I hope you're well, and good evening to yourself as well, Struan.
It's good to have you guys join me tonight, and a warm welcome to everybody tuning in to this live stream. Gentlemen, we've had a very interesting week of football so far. We currently have Aberdeen playing in the UEFA Europa Conference League at the moment, away in Baku against Karabakh. They are currently a goal down at half-time, and we are just awaiting St Johnstone kicking off against Lask of Austria. We'll give you live updates of the scores throughout the show. But gentlemen, tonight, Celtic already have kicked off their Europa League qualifying campaign. They were in action in the playoff against Alkmaar last night. A comfortable 2-0 win for Ange Postecoglou's side. Struan, what did you make of the win for Celtic? A very impressive performance again.
I think it was a phenomenal win, to be honest, given coming into the game. You know, a lot of people know Alkmaar, they're a solid side, and Celtic have been a bit up and down. I think the defence was definitely questionable, but I think the main thing I've taken away is the clean sheet. And I think there's so many players in that Celtic team you could identify last night who were phenomenal. Of course, Hart made an excellent save. Kyogo can't stop scoring, another excellent goal. It wasn't the fanciest of finishes, but of course it's like a striker's goal getting in the box. Exactly what Celtic needed. And somebody even like Tony Ralston as well, I thought was absolutely excellent. He's maybe heard about the Juranovic news and decided it's time to step up his game. But absolutely phenomenal result for Celtic, to be honest.
David, Kyogo Furuhashi has settled into Celtic like a hand in glove, hasn't he? He just can't stop scoring at the moment.
You kind of touched upon this yourself, Grant. He's got Henrik Larsson vibes to him, just in terms of the way he plays, the way he goes and scores goals. And that's the good thing about Furuhashi. It's not just the way he scores his goals, it's the direction of play, the direction to get forward immediately, the direction in order to go and expose teams immediately. And he's got that intelligence about his play, and intelligence in a very positive way in terms of he won't just go wide. He's the proper centre forward that you probably would have found about 20, 25 years ago with regards to just wanting to get into the box and wanting to go and score goals. And his goal scoring ratio just speaks for itself. Yeah, absolutely. Struan,
I mean, Furuhashi, is he going to be in the same ballpark as Larsson? It is early days, but the man's flying, isn't he?
He's been absolutely excellent, to be honest. I mean, I was saying on a couple of shows ago, you know, the only performance he's not had that was excellent was the one against Hearts at the start of the season, where he came on for about 10 minutes and he was playing off the left-hand side. He's been absolutely phenomenal. You know, I'll hold my hands up and say I didn't know anything about him other than he played with the same team as Iniesta. That's all I knew about him coming into Scotland, and he's taken me by surprise, and I think he's taken many Celtic fans by surprise. He's been absolutely amazing, and it's one of those signs that I really like because Postecoglou knows who he is. He's worked in the J-League before. He wanted him, and I feel you can see that he's been absolutely terrific.
Struan touched this earlier on, David, but Joe Hart made a massive save in the first few minutes of this game because Alkmaar started very well. But once Celtic got the opening goal, they were so comfortable, and, you know, 2-0 flattered Alkmaar really in the end, didn't it?
I'm going to go back to that Joe Hart save before I continue on, and I feel like Joe Hart save kind of helped with regards to how the complexity of the game panned out to be, because, I mean, had that shot went in, I feel Alkmaar, you're not sure if they're going to go win the game, but what it does provide is it provides that expertise where Alkmaar are in the game, and also they have that goal away from home, which is always massive when you're playing away from home against a team. So, I mean, that Joe Hart save is probably one of the most important saves he's probably made in his career, and people might go and say that's an extortionate statement to be going and making, but I don't think it is, because, I mean, it was a big game for Celtic last night. It was probably the biggest game for Celtic as a football club in a very long time, considering they want European football, and yeah, there was a disappointment in the Champions League side of things, but it was a big game for Celtic last night. It'll be a big game for Celtic when they travel to Holland again next week. But as for the game itself, I mean, the goal helped through Furuhashi, and then the second followed shortly after, and it was a good display by Celtic. And you're right by saying that the two scoreline kind of flattered Alkmaar in the end with regards to just the way Celtic played and the way that they kind of exposed Alkmaar, because it really was a strong display. And what Celtic are really good at is they're pressing the right way. As I touched upon Furuhashi and the fact that he's been very intelligent with regards to the way he's playing and the ways that he's going at defenders. But also, Struan touched upon it with regards to Anthony Ralston. He was absolutely brilliant last night. I mean, a lot's been made about this. You signing, who is it, Struan, sorry?
Josip Juranovic from Legia Warsaw.
A lot's been made about him coming into the club, but if I'm being honest, I feel if they do bring in Juranovic and obviously Ralston gets dropped out, I think it would be a little bit harsh in my honest opinion, just because he's coming into a game for Ange Postecoglou's side. I mean, he's been consistent. I mean, he's had his doubters, but I mean, you get this a lot in football, Grant, where you get a lot of players that will have new managers and they maybe haven't clicked with other managers, but then this new manager come in and it will click. And that's what happened with Ralston. And I mean, Starfelt has his doubters. I mean, but what you will get with Starfelt is he has quite an influence in terms of his calmness. He's not really a player that panics in the ball. He's not really the Chris Ayers or Virgil van Dijk's of these worlds, and I don't think he will be. I'm happy to be proved wrong in that regard. But with regards to the man himself, after that chance that Alkmaar had after 5 minutes, he did have a period in the game in which he became a lot more settled and grew into the game.
I feel that Starfelt is still settling in at Celtic at the back. And, you know, there's a lot of people saying that when Chris Julian comes back, he will slot in alongside and Celtic might be a bit stronger defensively. But until that kind of strength and consistency and confidence comes in, Celtic are still going to be vulnerable, aren't they, Struan? And, you know, we talked about Joe Hart there. How crucial is it that he has good games like this, makes big saves? Because for me, 5 years ago after that Euros defeat to Iceland, I thought his career was pretty much finished.
Yeah, I totally agree. I believe at Burnley over a 4-year spell and some time at Torino and West Ham on loan from Man City, he was barely a first choice. I don't think he's been a first choice at a club in around 4 years since that. And for a goalkeeper, that's incredible. You know, you always want to be sharp and you never want to become a second choice. But I feel he did. I feel at Tottenham, it was quite clear he was going to be the second choice behind Hugo Lloris. And I've got to applaud him for making this move to Celtic because it's absolutely massive. The goalkeeping situation has been dire at Celtic between Barkas and Scott Bain recently. You know, you can't even decide which one of the two of them is number one. Obviously, Craig Gordon was excellent. Fraser Forster on loan as well was massive. And it was just a clear drop-off. And of course, as well, the position that Celtic were in coming into this season when Joe Hart arrived, it wasn't great. Rangers were clear favourites for the title. It was a new manager. The entire Celtic defence has really needed a rework. So I've just got to applaud Joe Hart for what he's done. And he's had a great impact. As we said, the saves he made last night were crucial. I think he brings a lot of leadership as well. As we said, although he hasn't played as the first choice goalkeeper in a while, he's played with some of the greats, you know, behind the likes of Vincent Kompany at Man City, in that England defence as well. He was number one. He's got that leadership, and I feel he can bring a lot because I'm sort of looking at that back line and I think Starfelt will get better. I think he's having a rough time settling in, but he's almost that leader in that back four, given the ages of the others. I know Taylor and Celtic. Taylor has been at Celtic for a few years. Ralston obviously has come through the academy, but they're both still 24, 22 years old. You know, they're youngsters. Stephen Welsh is another one. It's almost like Starfelt has come in and he's had to be that sort of that father figure in the defence. Almost you look at somebody like Sergio Ramos, the way he'll come in and he'll command the defence. I look to the Italian national team and the likes of Bonucci and Chiellini, of course, that experience that they have. I feel Starfelt has had to offer that. And with Julian coming in, it will be a massive boost, but you need a goalkeeper. If your defence is shaky, it's the classic saying, isn't it? I mean, it's not a league game, but a goalkeeper wins you, 9-12 points a season, a really good goalkeeper. And I think Joe Hart is looking at the moment like he could potentially do that for Celtic.
Yeah, absolutely. Another new signing did come off the bench last night. James McCarthy only got the last quarter of an hour, but David, you know, he's got something to prove as well because he's had a series of really bad injuries and hopefully he could maybe restart his career again.
Absolutely. I feel for Joe Hart and James McCarthy that Celtic has the possibility to go and resurrect their careers to an extent, because it's not as though their careers have went and died, but what has happened to the both of them is it has been an opportunity just to go and reset the button and go and switch it on again in order to go and progress their careers, yes, but also as an opportunity for both of these players to go and show what they were capable of. Because I mean, James McCarthy back in the day was a superb midfielder at Hamilton Accies and then moved to the Premier League and has worked at other teams, but just hasn't worked out recently. And Celtic could be the switchboard that he requires in order for him to go and progress again. Because I mean, he's a quality midfielder. He's a midfielder that likes to get on the ball. He's a midfielder that likes to ball forward, and that's the good thing about Celtic this year. I mean, in past times, Celtic would have good, strong midfielders, but they would have, like say, your Scott Browns and various other players that wouldn't bomb forward as much. I mean, you're seeing it with Tom Rogic last night, and under Ange Postecoglou era, where Rogic isn't getting on the ball, wasn't getting in the ball, beg your pardon, as much under previous managers, but you'll notice under Postecoglou that he's getting in the ball a lot more.
Yes,
he's bombing forward, and you noticed that with the goal last night. He's found his form again under Postecoglou, because that was a stunning ball in for the first goal last night, which Furuhashi tucked away in. And that's the difference between Lennon and Postecoglou for me, where Lennon's a lot more laboured, a lot more switched back, whilst Postecoglou is a lot more forward thinking. And it's, with all due respect to Neil Lennon here, it's a lot more proper coaching, as somebody put it on Twitter. And I kind of agree with that correspondence, because I mean, you're noticing a more switched-on Celtic, you're noticing a more proactive Celtic, and you're noticing a Celtic that can go and have a go at teams now. And that's for Joe Hart. He's a pivotal figure in the goalkeeping department at Celtic. I mean, that's an area that Celtic have struggled with over the last 12 months with regards to Barkas. I mean, he came in with good reviews prior to arriving at Parkhead, but having arrived in the East End of Glasgow, we quickly found out that him and Shane Duffy, respectively, just weren't good enough for that football club. And to play for Celtic, you need to be a certain calibre of player. And Barkas and Shane Duffy just weren't that. And Joe Hart's came in and been a commanding influence already in that team, and already helped Celtic gain some much-needed points. And I'll be honest, Grant, saying the Midtjylland game came far too early for Celtic, just in the aspect of, had this game arrived 3 or 4 weeks down the line, I feel Celtic would have still been in the Champions League just now.
Yeah, no, you make some good points, David, and I think you both mentioned about Rogic. I thought it was very impressive from last night. He looks like he's getting back to his best. I think Christie and Turnbull look a lot more dynamic as well. There just seems to be that dynamism with Postecoglou is definitely getting in at Celtic. It feels, as you mentioned there, Dave, proactive, and it's really interesting to see Celtic looking so dynamic again, and certainly look like a side that could be challenging once again for the title. And Struan, James Forrest scored the second goal, though it was credited to a Timo Letcher own goal. It was deflected. But James Forrest is finding his feet again, isn't he, after a period out with injury?
Yeah, I think James Forrest was one of the key reasons that Celtic were as poor as they were last season. I think he can be so influential to that team. He's just excellent. And I think as well, he's never really been that sort of captain figure. But I think in the dressing room, he's one of those players who you look at, he's been at the club for so long, and it's great to see him doing well. I feel the fact that he can play off the left and the right as well is massive. Celtic have got so many attacking options that we've mentioned there, Rogic and Christie. I've actually got written in my notes just in bold light in writing, Tom Rogic is back, because he just seems to be the player that we remember from 3 or 4 years ago playing for Celtic, a really talented outfit. And I feel that... Sorry?
No, I was going to say, as an Aberdeen fan, I didn't want everybody to remember me about that, but go on.
We won't bring up that result, but and I feel Forrest is potentially another one. What I've been really impressed with Postecoglou is how some individual players, we spoke about Ralston having an excellent game as well. James Forrest is looking good. Christie is sort of coming back as well. Rogic, another one. I'm liking how many of these players who I think a lot of fans would have written off in the past are playing well. They're sort of having this, not a resurgence, because they're not too old, some of them, but they're once again getting recognition. And I feel for Forrest, for example, I think of the McLeish days quite recently under Scotland. Him and Ryan Fraser on the wings were excellent for the national team, but come the World Cup and the Euros, Forrest was just nowhere near the Scotland team. He occasionally played in that right wing back role, but I feel if he can develop, he can once again be, well, not develop, that's the wrong word. So if he can continue his improvement and get back to where he was, he can be a vital asset for both Celtic and back into the Scotland national team. Yeah,
very much so. Gentlemen, very quick question. Are Celtic going to get the job finished next week?
Yes.
David?
Yeah, I feel there's a long way to go in this, Grant, because Alkmaar are a dangerous side in Holland, but I feel Celtic have enough to come out on top.
Very interesting points of view, and I'm sure you can get your comments in on the chats wherever listed. Well, from the highs of the European competitions to down into League Two, where it's been really exciting to see some new talents coming through in Scotland. And one team I really want to talk about, gentlemen, is Kelty Hearts, who've had a fantastic start to life in League Two. They came up via the playoffs last year. They saw Brecon City and Borough Rangers in the previous round, and have accumulated 7 points from their first 3 matches so far. Level on points at the top with Forfar Athletic. David, I'm going to come to you first. What have you made of Kelty so far under Kevin Thompson? Because you'll have seen them in the flesh already with your role at Elgin City.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been impressed with Kelty Hearts. I mean, they've had a very good start to the season. I mean, when they played against Elgin in the Premier Sports Cup recently, I mean, Elgin were a stronger side in the first half, but Kelty Hearts had a bit of a dogginess about their play, and they were very strong with regards to the very really threatened in the first period. And no, I'm not trying to say they're a one-man team in terms of Nathan Austin. Vash, he does offer a lot, Nathan Austin, don't get me wrong, but they're not a one-man team, not by any stretch of imagination. They've got some quality players throughout their team. They've got Connor Barron, who's came on loan from Aberdeen. They've got Joe Carroll, been around the block. He's been at Raith Rovers. If I'm not mistaken, Morton. I think he's been at Dunfermline as well.
Yeah.
We've got Jordan Foster at the back, who was on the books at Dundee last year, and probably had it not been for the form of Wayne Fontaine and Wayne Ashcroft, probably would have been the first team at Dundee. And having watched Dundee on multiple occasions last year, I do feel that Jordan Foster was kind of left out undeservedly to an extent, just in terms of the quality of defender he is. And I think it shows a lot about Kelty's ambition when they're signing a player of Jordan Foster's calibre. Because, I mean, you've seen it with the likes of Cove Rangers and Queen's Park, who've came up from League Two over the last few years, where they've went and signed quality players. I mean, Cove have signed the likes of Shea Logan and Jevon Anderson over the last few weeks, who are quality players within themselves. Queen's Park have signed Simon Murray, and Simon Murray hasn't hit the heights of what he did maybe a decade ago, but Simon Murray still has a bit of quality about him, and that's the most positive thing. Kelty, a bit like Cove and Queen's Park, who have came up, aren't the finished package yet. Not by a million miles, beg your pardon, but what they do offer is they do offer something different to League Two. I think they'll go on and win it. Based on what I've seen, I think they will, but there's a long way to go. I mean, it was a stretch of their character when they drew 2-2 against Forfar last Saturday. Forfar went to go up, and then Kelty equalised thanks to Austin, who came on after the quarter hour, funnily enough, for I can't remember who it was for, but I think it's Botty Biabi, if I'm not mistaken. Yep. And then Forfar retook the lead, and then Kelty levelled again. But I think in League Two terms, there's a lot of good strikers at this minute in time. You've got Nathan Austin at Kelty, you've got Kane Hester at Elgin City, who's scored 7 goals for the season now, and there's probably going to be getting interest from clubs higher up the pyramid system. I'm led to believe Dundee were in for Kane Hester's services a year or two ago, and you've also got Matthew Aiken at Forfar Athletic, who, for those that don't know, signed from Albion Rovers back in the close season there. And Matthew Aiken was the second highest scorer behind. I can't remember who was behind, but he was the second highest scorer for Albion Rovers, and that was a struggling Albion Rovers side. So he's going to offer a lot to Forfar Athletic this season. And on to Kelty, and Kelty have a good abundance both defensively and attack. One Achilles heel that they'll have to go and improve on, and Kevin Thompson has went and admitted this, is the fact that they're conceding penalties at this minute in time. Not only that, they're also conceding goals, but also balance that conceding goals with keeping clean sheets. I mean, Darren Jamieson's an excellent goalkeeper and will keep clean sheets and win Kelty some much needed points this year. But from Kevin Thompson's point of view, and he's kind of touched upon it in the interviews that he's done recently, Kelty have conceded five penalties in 10 games since Kevin's took over at the Fife Club, and that's got to be a worrying factor for Kelty moving forward. Because I mean, if Kelty are going to be successful, they need to tighten things up at the back and avoid the likes of your Aitkins and your Hesters and various other strikers' opportunities. I mean, you've got a commanding figure in Jamieson to go and stop players in their tracks and stop goals, but that's not the point. I mean, for teams to win championships and teams to be successful, you need to stop giving away stupid things such as penalties on regular occasions.
Yeah, absolutely. Struan, going to come to you because Kelty beat County 2-0. They won at Stirling Albion 3-1. And as David mentioned there, they drew with Forfar 2-2 in their last game. They got Edinburgh City at the weekend. I mean, how far can Kelty go? Because they've come into the league and they look like they've taken to it like a duck to water.
Yeah, I think that's the best way to describe it. You know, coming into the season, I wasn't too sure what to make of Kelty Hearts. Of course, Barry Ferguson left to go to Alloa. I wasn't too sure. Kevin Thompson, I believe this is his first ever full managerial role as well. I know him from his playing career, three spells at Hibs, I think it was in the end for him. And of course, he's a young manager himself, about 36. So that it's quite an exciting. I like seeing young managers in jobs because I feel it's quite often innovative and it's just a little bit different. And I think they've had an absolutely excellent start, to be honest. I've seen a lot of people who haven't really taken much interest in them in the past have just caught an eye of it and seen how good they've been, how much they've impressed supporters. And it's I don't like to make calls too early in the season, but I think they can really have a good campaign. I would expect some form of fall off to come later on, but at the meantime, it's ride the momentum.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it is early days, but you look at the league table in League Two. I mean, Edinburgh City, who were in the playoff last year, haven't had the best of starts, just 3 points from their first 3 games, and only the 1 goal scored. Stirling Albion, likewise, just 3 points. David, it all seems to be, a real mishmash of teams in the league. I know it's early days, everybody jockeying for position, but while everybody's settling in, Kelty might want to hit the ground running and keep on going.
Absolutely, but that's the joys of Scottish football, Grant. I mean, I'm going to pinpoint you to League One just for a minute here in terms of, we'll get onto that later on the show, of course, but there's 3 teams at the top at this minute in time where you've got like Cove Rangers who have invested heavily that only just picked up their first win last weekend against East Fife. But on to Kelty, terrific start to the season, and this is probably an opportunity to go and go ahead of the rest now because, I mean, like say Elgin, they've got forfeit the weekend and you've got other games where teams are playing teams around about them. So, yeah, it's a perfect opportunity for Kelty to go and pull clear the rest. And Edinburgh City, you're probably playing at the right time because Edinburgh City aren't exactly playing with confidence right now. They've got a good 1-0 win over Sterresmuir last weekend. And that's a Sterresmuir team in transition, considering the players that took in, but also the abundance of players that took in. They've not just took in the 2 or 3 players that maybe other teams have been accustomed to over the last few months. What Sterresmuir have done is built from the bottom and took in an abundance of players. And that's all thanks to Stephen Swift coming in as manager, having been in charge at Broomhill. But on to Kelty. Kelty have a good abundance of defence and attack, and it's important now that they go and build a bit of momentum. I mean, they'll be disappointed to draw 2-2 against Forfar, but in the end, it's probably a good point considering they were behind twice in the game and then came back to pick up that point. So looking into this weekend, they'll be looking to get back to winning ways and then start a bit of momentum again because, I mean, they've got a bit of momentum with the Prem Sports Cup in terms of they beat Elgin and even though it was defeats, they ran Arbroath and Dundee close who are 2 and 3 weeks above them respectively. So Kelty have been a respectable figure in the both in the league and the cups this year, and it's important to continue this fine start moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely. Struan, last point to you on this. Who are Kelty's rivals for the League Two title if we think that Kelty are challenging for the title? I mean, Forfar obviously were relegated last season. They played them at the weekend. They got a point off them. They're also on 7 points. We talked about Edinburgh City. They played them this weekend with a chance to go 7 points clear of them, even at this early stage. It's a good cushion for Kelty to aspire to get ahead of.
As much as I'd love to say my local team, Stirling Albion, I'll keep them out of this one for now. I think you would have to look at somebody like Forfar, of course, a relegated team. Quite often in any division in any country, you often say the teams who have gone down are one of the favourites to go back up. But it's quite difficult exactly to pinpoint who. Obviously, Edinburgh City haven't made the best start, but you would expect them to climb back up later on. I'm sort of reminded of the phrase of you can't win a league title within the first few months, but you can certainly lose one. And I feel it's difficult at the moment to identify who is going to be there come the end of the season, but I feel the signs that likes of Kelty Hearts are giving off. You could definitely see them in and around it. I think Forfar will be there, and as you mentioned, I think Edinburgh City will be there or thereabouts come the end of the season.
Yeah, certainly going to be very interesting, and I'm sure the story of Kelty has touched the imaginations of so many football fans who I'm sure will be interested to hear and watch how they progress throughout the season. We said we were going to give live updates of scores from the European ties tonight, and I can inform everybody that St Johnstone have taken the lead in Austria against Lask, courtesy of Chris Kane. So it is 1-0 to Callum Davidson's side. A tremendous start for the Perth team. What a phenomenal start to the season they have had. But from the fantastic high of St Johnstone, we now move into the rather complicated League One in Scotland, which is just so tight at this early stage. Just 3 games played. Queen's Park, Montrose and Falkirk level at the top with 7 points. Struan, I'm going to come to you. Is this going to be one of the most open League One seasons we've ever had in Scotland?
It certainly looks that way. I love when the season starts like this, and it's so difficult to predict who's going to be there. You've got some underdog shouts, you've got your classic favourites, but it's just that era of unknowing, really, in this at the start of the season, when you can't quite pick out who's going to be a favourite heading into a game because everybody started so well. And I feel it's good because it'll draw a lot of attention to this league. A lot of fans of Scottish football will just be paying attention to the Premiership, of course, but if you see how tight and competitive League One is, a lot of people will start to turn an eye to it. And I feel hopefully it continues throughout the season to be this close, because there's nothing worse than a title race being done by December, or your top 2, top 3 being over and done with and running away from the pack. So to see the teams be so close and congested, even though it is only 3 games into the season, it's just great to see.
David, we've talked about Kelty Hearts taking League 2 like a duck to water. The same can also be said for Queen's Park in League 1, can't it? They've been really good so far.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, they've had a terrific start to the season. It was a good win over Cove Rangers last week, and 2 wins and 1 draw is a great response to start the season, and you can't ask for any more. I mean, a lot of questions were raised about Queen's Park when Ray McKinnon left his position at the end of last season and Laurie Ellis took over, but I mean, it's been a good appointment for all concerned at Queen's Park. And I mean, Queen's Park are going through a bit of transition themselves, not in terms of on the park, but off the park, in terms of they're playing their games at Firhill Stadium, and because they're obviously waiting for Lesser Hampden to be built, and that causes its own problems, because I mean, Queen's Park have been playing at various places since they lost their tenancy of Hampden Park. And I mean, they've been playing at the Falkirk Stadium, they've been playing at Firhill Stadium. So I mean, it brings its own pressures with regards to how you're going to adapt. But Queen's Park have done magnificently well. If I'm being honest, and I'm going to be brutally honest, I actually thought Queen's Park weren't going to go and start the season as well as they have. I mean, I do feel there's a blip in Queen's Park to follow, but I mean, they won't be complaining at this minute in time. I mean, it's been a cracking start to the season, and you'll probably get on to it, but I mean, I think we've got to credit the work that Stuart Petrie has done at Montrose, because I mean, that's them second in the league again, and Montrose were very unlucky not to miss out promotion last season, missing out to Morton. I mean, Stuart Petrie's just worked wonders at the Links Park club. I mean, every season he's had his team competing. I mean, it all started 5-6 years ago, when Montrose got promoted from League 2 into League 1. It took a bit of settling in, but then after that, it was a case of Montrose competing in the League 1. And if anybody deserves promotion to the Championship, it is Montrose. And how we'd all love to see both Montrose derby in the Championship.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Stuart Petrie's been absolutely superb at Montrose. I thought it was a bit of an interesting moment when he stayed at Montrose, because he was being linked with a few clubs, I'm sure, during the summer. But Montrose, I definitely think, have done very well keeping hold of him, for sure. Stu, I'm going to come to you, because Falkirk are always a bit of an enigma in Scottish football. They've started the season fairly well as well, under the tutorship of Paul Sheeran. It's his first real major gig in Scottish football. What have you made of the Bairns so far this season?
I've been impressed. I mean, we all know what happened last season with Falkirk. It didn't quite go to plan, but I mean, they've had a good start to the season. They've got 7 points as well. I think they've scored 5 and conceded 3 overall, so it's a decent start. 2 wins and a draw. You can't really complain about that. And I feel it speaks a lot about the mentality. Of course, we know last season it didn't go well for Falkirk at the end. So to be able to not bounce back entirely from that, but to be able to keep their heads up and get into a good position. If you had a bad start to the season, I think there would have been a lot of angry Falkirk fans, but they've started well, and I think that's a very good bounce back from them. Would be my main thought of them so far this season.
Yeah, absolutely. David, going to come back to you. I mean, you've paid quite close attention to Cove Rangers. Paul Hartley again. Interesting to see how Cove get on this season. You mentioned this earlier on in the show, some of the signings they've made. What have you made of their start this season? They've had a bit of an inconsistent start, but some of these things have been kind of out of their hands with COVID and a range of other situations.
Yeah, you've hit the nail on the button there, Grant, with regards to the COVID situation. I mean, Cove Rangers have signed some quality players, such as like some Morgan Neal from Dumbarton. I mean, I've watched Morgan Neal for quite a few years now, and I've been quite impressed with the big man. I mean, he offers a presence at the back, and he's quite a decent height for a centre half, so he's been a good signing for Cove Rangers. You've also got Kyle Gourlay, who's been on the books at Dundee and Hamilton. He provides good competition for Stuart McKenzie in the sticks at the Balmoral Stadium. You've also got, as I alluded to earlier, Shea Logan. You've also got Ryan Strachan, Harry Milne returning from injury, because I mean, he was a big miss in my honest opinion for Cove Rangers. I mean, he's not as young now, but he's 25, and he's got such a calming influence about him. I mean, he's a winner, and he whenever he comes onto the pitch, he just wants to go and win games. He's got such a honest, hard-working mentality about him. You've also got the likes of Ross Draper and Ian Vigors who came into the picture at Cove Rangers, and yeah, they've not started well, but I mean, I think there's a longer-term project to this at the Balmoral Stadium. I mean, Cove Rangers collapsed at the semi-final stage to Airdrie Unions last year, and I don't think collapse is the right word, but anyway, on to this season, and it's a case of progression for Cove Rangers now, just in terms of they've got a 5-year project, and this is a big season in terms of that 5-year project, because, I mean, they'll be looking for promotion and they'll be looking to progress both on and off the park, because, I mean, Balmoral Stadium and also Cove Rangers as a whole, as a football club, there's so much potential. I mean, they've got a good link up with Cove Boys Club there at Cove, and they've also got the hospitality suites sold out every week. They've got 3 stands, a big stand, and they've got 2 little stands at the other side of the ground, and it's a tiny little wee ground. The Achilles heel of a Cove is the windy weather that you get every Saturday afternoon, because it's always absolutely windy at Balmoral Stadium. But irrespective, no, it's a good club for Cove. Aberdeen deserves 2 teams, and if we can get Cove Rangers into the Championship, it would be terrific for the Granite City.
Absolutely agree with that 100%. Stu, I'm going to come to you because we talked a lot about teams doing well, but one club that haven't started the season particularly well are Airdrie Unions, which has surprised me a little bit because they had that fantastic win against Motherwell in the Premier Sports Cup, but then they got absolutely thrashed by Queen of the South in the last group game, and it's kind of transpired into the league campaign. They haven't started at all well under Ian Murray.
No, it's been a dreadful start, to be honest. Is it 1 draw they've had and 2 defeats? It's a nightmare. It's just difficult. Again, I go back to the point where I made previously about how I wasn't expecting them obviously to win the league, but if you can't win a league within the first few weeks, but you can certainly lose it and throw away, and it's a disaster. Of course, the start they made, of course, beating Motherwell in this Premier Sports Cup, as you said, it's massive, but it's just not quite transpired into the league so far. You'd hope it'd be more of a blip towards the start of the season rather than anything to really worry about. But at the same time, you'd have to argue it's just not an ideal start, to be honest. It's obviously not an ideal start, but yeah.
Yeah, one other side that haven't started well, Dave, is Alloa Athletic under Barry Ferguson. Obviously, they dropped down from the Championship last season, just the 1 win so far. Are you concerned by Alloa, even at this early stage?
Yeah, I think you have to be. I mean, I had high hopes for Alloa, considering the job that Barry Ferguson did at Kelty Hearts, because, I mean, Kelty was a club with strong expectations. There was a lot of pressure on Barry Ferguson. And I think that pressure kind of told, because, I mean, you don't believe a club of Kelty Hearts' potential calibre if there's no pressure involved, and obviously various things that come alongside that. So I do feel that Barry Ferguson has made the right decision to an extent to join Alloa Athletic, but because you've had some top managers there in the past, such as Jimmy Williams now at St Mirren, you've got Jack Ross at Hibs, Peter Grant's not exactly go off to the best of starts at Dunfermline, but that's another manager that's jumped onto a so-called bigger club, with all due respect to Alloa. In my opinion, is kind of justifying that, considering Alloa is a part-time club at this minute in time. They are a top part-time club, though, I must admit that. But yeah, the start of the season's got to be worrying, and it's not just been the league terms either, Grant. It's been in the Prem Sports Cup group stages as well.
Yes.
If you remember, they could beat 1-0 by Bacon City in the group stages of the Prem Sports Cup, and that was a worrying picture for Alloa. I mean, it told you maybe the difference in mentality and complexion from a Bacon City point of view. And Andy Kirk's doing a great job in the higher league side at this precise moment in time, but also you balance that out with looking at Alloa and going, I mean, they've not exactly started life well in League Two, but I mean, Barry Ferguson's always had blips whenever he's worked in the management scale. I mean, he had blips at Kelty, he had blips at Clyde beforehand, and he's having blips at Alloa, and it's not a welcome picture from their point of view. They've got a good win over East Fife, but having watched East Fife myself personally, I don't think East Fife are probably one of the worst sides of League Two, and I'm going to be brutally honest when I say that. I mean, I'm not being disrespectful to Darren Young or his East Fife team here. And I mean, East Fife have done very well by bringing in Stevie Frail as Darren's assistant manager. But I mean, yeah, it's a worrying picture for Alloa Athletic. And I mean, they could beat last weekend at the hands of Clyde. And that was a Clyde side's lone confidence. Danny Lynn was under intense pressure, and it was a lacklustre performance from Alloa Athletic. And it's a big game against Queen's Park this weekend because Queen's Park are a side that are good in form. Queen's Park will be wanting to maintain their strong start to the season. But then it's a big couple of weeks because I've just noticed they've got Airdrie Unions away the week after, and that's two sides struggling. So it's a big couple of weeks for Alloa coming up before they play County Beef away from home in the Challenge Cup on the 4th of September. So a lot to play for from an Alloa point of view.
Yeah, absolutely. Anything else that we can talk about here in League One? Some of the sides that have maybe caught your eye have had a more impressive start than others? Stuart?
I think Alloa Athletic are one of the shocks. I think it was quite interesting that we have started the show with Kelty Hearts, obviously with Barry Ferguson being there and taking this step. I mean, he might be playing his old side soon for all we know. Just don't know which league it could potentially be in. But I think I'm just looking at the league table now and I'm trying to decide. I think Queen's Park start is possibly what would have to be the point I'd make the most. I mean, it's absolutely excellent so far. 2 wins and a draw, 7 points. Can't really complain about that, to be honest. I think possibly the overall, as we touched on when we first got into League One, is just how close the league is. I think that's possibly what's taken my eye, caught my eye the most. And I think a lot of fans, just no team in particular, just when you look down the right-hand column of a league table and just seeing how close those points are, every game almost means something, and so many positions can change based on one result. And I just feel as long as the table stays like that, it's going to become what I would describe as being watchable. Just it doesn't matter who's playing, it's going to have a significant impact on the league table. David,
anything else you'd like to add? Final word to you on this.
Yeah, I was just going to add that I feel that Ian Murray Airdrie gets a bit of unjustified criticism. I mean, his side are currently 9th in the table, and I was having a look at some forum sites prior to coming on this evening, and I noticed that Ian Murray was getting a bit of unjustified criticism from sections of Airdrie Unions fans. If there's a reason for that, I can maybe understand, because I mean, Airdrie Unions are a side known for playing expansive football. They are a side known for being exposed at the back of the cage, but also Ian Murray will be judged on results, and results in the past few seasons maybe haven't been good enough. But you've got to remember, Ian Murray, when last season after the COVID lockdown, and when the season resumed in March, Airdrie Unions, or Ian Murray for that matter, changed the system after getting beat 1-0 by Peterhead in the first game back. And the system worked a treat. I mean, I was at the Balmoral Stadium for the playoff against Cove Rangers, and Airdrie Unions that day were superb. I mean, it was a 2-2 draw, but Airdrie Unions were lucky not to go and win the game. I mean, Paul Payton was like a Rolls Royce at the back for Airdrie Unions. His experience is second to none. I mean, he would be a great addition for a championship team, in my honest opinion, but he wants to go down the part-time route, and I kind of respect his opinion on that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's very interesting, League One so far. I'm sure many of our viewers watching tonight will have a check into that, I'm sure. We said we'd keep you up to date with all the scores in Europe this evening. It's still Karabag 1, Aberdeen 0 in Baku. And remember, it's St Johnstone 1-0 up in Lask, courtesy of that Chris Kane goal. While we're on Europe, gentlemen, Rangers are playing Alkmaar tonight in their first leg of the Europa League. How confident are you that Rangers will A, get through the tie, but B, win tonight?
I think it could be one of these results that's done in the first leg, to be honest. I feel Rangers need to bounce back. I was having a look at their European coefficient, the club rankings before this, and Alkmaar are 179th and Rangers are 52nd. I think out of all the teams currently playing the Scottish side, Alkmaar are the lowest ranked, and I think you'd expect Rangers to be the strongest side from Scotland this season as well. So it's one of those where I could see it in the first half, to be perfectly honest. I could see them potentially wrapping it up. I've given it a 3-0 prediction, possibly up to even 4, because I think what Rangers will have in mind is the Old Firm coming up. And if they can put this tie to bed in the first leg, in the next leg, they can potentially rest a few players. I think they have Ross County coming up as well, which, no disrespect to Ross County, I think they'll possibly rest a few for that one as well. So I think they'll want this one done. Obviously, the shock defeat, potentially some would call it, to Malmo. I think it was a fair result, to be honest, to Malmo, but from some it would have been a shock to see Rangers go out so early. They need to bounce back. It was 3 defeats in a row before they hammered Hart, Pars in the cup at the weekend. So I think it's a good time for Rangers to be playing this game. They've got a little bit of momentum, obviously, from the cup result, and they've just got the need to bounce back, to be perfectly honest. Yeah, absolutely. Momentum is absolutely crucial for Stephen Gerrard and Rangers at the moment. And David, they really found that form again against Dunfermline with that 5-0 win. How crucial is it they kick that up further the track tonight with a convincing home victory? Yeah, it's a big game for Rangers this evening. I mean, Rangers have had a very patchy start to the season. I mean, nobody was going to expect Rangers to go and get beat against Dundee United, if I'm being
brutally honest with you, but to their credit, or credit to themselves that day. And Tam Coates has been in for a bit of unjustified criticism, and I don't think it's deserved. And Rangers that day were very poor, but Rangers have responded very well with that win over Dunfermline last Friday night. They need the win, they need goals, but also, in my honest opinion, they need a performance. They need a performance that's dominant. They need a performance that kind of replicates Celtic's from last night, if I'm being honest with you.
Yes.
Just in the sense that if Celtic are back, in my honest opinion, they're not. It's not the Celtic of last year. It's not the Celtic of COVID times. It's the Celtic of Brendan Rodgers. It's not the Celtic of Brendan Rodgers. That we're going a bit too far here. But what we are seeing from Celtic is we're seeing a renewed enthusiasm about Celtic, and I think we're looking forward to this Old Firm derby coming up. So from a Rangers point of view, as you said, Grant, momentum's absolutely needed this evening, and Rangers need a good performance. And I'm going to go 3-0 Rangers tonight, and just some players to look out for from an Irish Cup point of view. I fancy Josie and Barrow and David Kurtzitz to do well for Irish Cup. So if Irish Cup score tonight, you know where you got your homework from. Just myself.
I'm glad somebody did their homework.
I fancy Rangers to go and do well tonight, and I'm going to go 3-0 Rangers.
Yeah, I actually fancy 4-0 Rangers tonight, but if any Rangers fans are actually tuning in tonight, please don't blame me if the score doesn't go your way. Well, we talked already about how close League One is. Well, the Championship, we now have two rivals taking place tomorrow night in the first Fife derby of the season, as Raith Rovers, fresh from their shock League Cup victory over Aberdeen last Sunday, are at home again to Dunfermline, who have not had a great start to the Championship season. Gentlemen, how excited are you for this game? Because, Struan, I'm going to come to you first. Raith have had, yes, a sticky start in the league, but that victory over Aberdeen will give them a massive shot in the arm, don't you think?
Oh, yeah, totally. It's quite funny almost to compare the results that they've had at the weekend. Obviously, Raith were the surprise beating Aberdeen, whereas Pars, on the other hand, were battered 5-0 from Rangers. So I don't know if that's possibly one of the more important factors coming into this one. Obviously, Dunfermline have not started the best in the league, but it's an interesting one. From a neutral point of view, I'm really excited because I think it could be a really, really close game. I'm not too sure for the scoreline per se, whether it be high scoring, but I certainly expect it to be a close game, whether that be a 1-1 or perhaps, like a 3-3.
David, Dunfermline have not won at Stark Park since 2017. Does that have a big factor in tomorrow night's game, do you think?
I don't think so, because, you've got, John McGlynn's side got a good win over Aberdeen last weekend. Aberdeen were poor. Aberdeen made a lot of changes, some of it not justified, and you've kind of touched upon it with your Red Tinted Glass podcast, just in the sense that Aberdeen made far too many changes, and I agree with your opinion on that, and they did. They made far too changes, but that's no excuse from an Aberdeen point of view. Aberdeen had enough to go and win the game, but that's not taking anything away from Raith Rovers, who were absolutely fantastic in the second half and had a lot more hunger about them to go and win the game last week. And Raith Rovers don't have, in my honest opinion, as good a squad as last season, but what you will have is you'll have a renewed sense in Lewis Vaughan. Lewis Vaughan will be hungry to go and score goals, and that win over Aberdeen last week is good from a Raith Rovers point of view, because that opening day of the season against Hamilton is probably brushed away or distinguished from a Raith Rovers point of view, considering the goals that they conceded in the last 20 minutes, and it was a disappointing defeat in Inverness. So that was a very welcome victory over Aberdeen for Raith Rovers last weekend, and it's renewed optimism heading into tomorrow night's Fife derby. This is a big game for Dunfermline tomorrow night, even at this early stage in the season. Just in the sense that Peter Grant needs a win in order to go and kick-start. They've had an abject start to the season. There's no getting away from that. He has been backed by the new German investors, and he just needs a result to go and kick-start the season. But I kind of pinpoint to Dundee when I speak about Dunfermline, just in the sense that Peter Grant has not a similar squad, but he has a squad in which is kind of aligned to Dundee, just in the sense that James McPake had a couple of stumbling blocks last season in his tenure at Dundee, and James McPake always responded in a professional manner, winning the games and also making sure they were still in the playoff hunt, and ultimately it led to a second place finish in promotion to Premiership, which was the final herring in the coin, so to speak, with regards to getting promotion. That was the aim for Dundee Football Club. Promotion is the aim for Dunfermline this season, and tomorrow night they could kind of go and kickstart the season again, winning at Kirkcaldy. I mean, when you look back at Dundee got a good win in the playoffs at Kirkcaldy last season, and it kind of kick-started their promotion hunt because
absolutely.
I mean, had those victories over Raith Rovers not happened, you probably wouldn't see Dundee in the Premiership now. So I mean, tomorrow night's a big game, but I mean, Raith Rovers got a good 5-1 win over Dunfermline last season and before the playoffs, and that'll be Dunfermline's mind. And I mean, Raith Rovers beat Dunfermline in the playoffs as well. I think it's 2-0 in the second leg. So
it was.
Yeah, Dunfermline will have probably a lot of desire heading into this game, but I mean, it's got the takings to be a magnificent game tomorrow night, Grant and Stu. I mean, you've got two excellent managers there. You've got John McGlynn for Raith Rovers, who is a very underrated coach. But you've also got Peter Grant, and everybody knows Peter Grant. I mean, he's coached for West Ham United. He's coached for Scotland alongside Alex McLeish. He's done everything in the game you need to know. And if he can't get promotion for Dunfermline, I don't know who can.
Yeah, it should be really interesting. I mean, Nicky Clark and Lee Ashcroft were the two scorers in that Dunfermline win back in 2017. Struan, I'm going to come to you on this because Raith, David mentioned it there, they were 4-0 up against Hamilton and spilled 2 points in that game. It was important that they got a bit of a result in the Cup, but obviously now it's back to league form and they really need to start moving up the table because already they are playing a little bit of catch-up to the early pace setters, what both teams are really, because Partick, Killie and Inverness, maximum points from the first couple of games, so you don't want to get too far behind even at this early stage.
No, definitely not. I mean, it must have been some confidence knock to be 4-0 up on Hamilton. And at the 78th minute, I believe it was when Hamilton got the first in that game. And to throw that away, I think would have been a massive confidence knock. But it's time to get back. The win over Aberdeen would have done absolute wonders for the fans and for the players on the pitches. It's the perfect result coming into the weekend. And for Pars, it's the worst result possible, to be honest, with the defeat going in. But I think it's Christophe Berra, wasn't it, who arrived in the summer for Raith?
Yes.
I feel I've sort of looked at the two teams coming into this one and noticed Dunfermline brought in Graham Dorrans and Raith brought in Berra, two experienced figures. And I was kind of reminded of the way Charlie Adams came into Dundee last season and just have that presence. And I feel someone like Christophe Berra can be huge. Obviously, he's getting on now. He's had a long spell at Hearts, etc. But I feel coming into the season, he's going to be one of those players who Raith are going to rely on to just get them going, have that leadership, that voice. He's probably one of the loudest in the dressing room. And I feel, even though the start wasn't that best, I feel the pick up, the courage, the way they've turned things around. Obviously, it wasn't too bad to begin with, but the way they've come off from the weekend, I think they'll be going into this one full of confidence. And
David, Dario Zanata, who scored the winning goal against Aberdeen, he's had a bit of an up and down career in Scotland, but that'll be a massive carrot for his confidence, I'm sure, with scoring the winner against Aberdeen last weekend.
Well, I kind of alluded to the fact that in the previous question that Raith Rovers don't have the strongest squad in my honest opinion, but what you will find from John McGlynn is he's signed players that have experience of this league. I mean, he's signed Tom Lang from Clyde, who hasn't had the experience of this league, but will be good centre half, because I mean, I watched him a couple of times for Clyde and he was an impressive figure for the Billy Wee last year. You've also had Zanata, as you touched upon, and Zanata has had a touching up and down career, beg your pardon, but what he probably suits the way John McGlynn likes his sides to play. The way he plays probably goes in hand with John McGlynn's philosophy, just in terms of the way he gets in the ball, but also the way he gets out wide, the way that he likes to go at defenders, and he's very much up John McGlynn's street with regards to his physique, but also the way he plays the game. You've also got James Keatons, who's been a good signing. He's not Regan Hendry level, in my honest opinion, but what you will find from Keatons is he knows the championship very well. He knows what it takes to win things in this league, and you can't undermine him for that. I mean, he's a fantastic midfielder, and he'll do well at Starks Park this year. As for Zanata, I hope the goal against Aberdeen Sunday kind of goes and kick-starts his time at Rovers, because I mean, there's a lot of potential in the player, but it's about getting the potential out of that player in order for Zanata to go kick on now, because I mean, as you've touched upon, he is capable of doing it, but he needs to be consistent for John McGlynn's side. And if he can do that, he'll get Raith Rovers success, because I mean, the Championship is a competitive league this year, as is League 1 and League 2 in the Premiership, but what you will find from a Raith Rovers perspective is if they can hit the consistency that they did last year, they'll be up there again. And Dario Zanata plays a big part in that for Raith Rovers.
Yeah, it's certainly going to be really interesting. I'm really looking forward to the game. The game is live on the BBC Scotland channel, and I'll certainly be tuning in to watch that game tomorrow night. Well, now we're at the stage of the show where it's time for our predictions challenge. And as it's the first time that we're going to be doing this as a trio, I'm looking forward to see how badly some of my predictions do against these two fine gentlemen here. Let's start with that game on Friday night, folks. Raith against Dunfermline. David, give us a scoreline.
I'm going to go for a goal scoring evening at Starks Park tomorrow night. I'm going to go for Raith Rovers 3, Dunfermline 1.
Struan?
But I should say this before we get into them. I always try and be as high scoring as I can be with predictions. I always like to hope that they're going to be better. I'm often disappointed by certain games, but I've gone for a 2-2. I think it's quite hard to describe these. I think Dunfermline need to get back into it. It's quite interesting. We touched on James Keating's earlier on because it just came back to me. I think on his first ever start for Hibs, he actually scored against Raith Rovers a few seasons ago. So I'm gonna predict him to score. Just run it.
Excellent. So I'm going to go for a 2-0 home win for Raith Rovers. I think they've got some renewed confidence after that victory over Aberdeen. I don't think Dunfermline are in great form just now. They really missed Declan McManus at the top end of the pitch. I think he's a massive loss for Dunfermline this season. And I just think Raith, with the confidence boosting when they got over Aberdeen in the Cup, will put that into this game on Friday night. They've got their own fans. As I mentioned, they haven't lost against Dunfermline at start since 2017, and that I think mentally is a huge advantage to Raith, and I think they'll win this game 2-0.
It's okay, Grant. Cole P agrees with myself.
Interesting point.
Let's 3-1 Raith as well.
He's went for 3-1 Raith as well. Let's move into the Scottish Premiership because there's a couple of really interesting games that we've picked this week as our predictions. We usually pick 5 games this week. We have also picked 5 here. There's 2 in the Scottish Premiership. We've picked Livingston against Motherwell. Gentlemen, how big a game is this for both teams? Because neither have started particularly well, particularly Livy.
Is it one of those you think you could almost say is a 6-pointer? Or is it too early in the season to perhaps say it's a 6-pointer? It's definitely neither side's made the best start to the season. I think Livingston's win at the weekend on penalties will be massive. I mean, it's a penalties victory. I'm not sure how much that can certainly boost the confidence, but going into this one, I think they need to take that with them. It's huge. You know, it's so early in the season. As I said, it's only the 3rd match in the Premiership, but already you could call this one a 6-pointer. Yeah,
absolutely. David, what's your thoughts on this? Because Motherwell have shown signs that they have got bits of improvement this season, but there's still similar issues that Graham Alexander has to think about as well.
Yeah, you're right. And I've had the privilege of seeing Motherwell in the last few weeks, and I watched them against St Johnstone, and I felt Motherwell were very, very lucky not to go win that day. Good goalkeeping was under Clark Ford. Motherwell all 3 points that day because I thought they shaded proceedings overall in that day in Perth with regards to the way they played. And I kind of touched upon it to yourself privately that I felt that day that Tony Watshift came on a lot sooner than he did. So yeah, I feel that Motherwell are a different side this year, and Van der Veen, I don't know if he's going to be back for Saturday, but having watched him against St Johnstone, he's a good sign for Graham Alexander's side this year. So it depends what Motherwell's side turn out, because I mean, I thought they were magnificent against St Johnstone, but I spoke to Ben Banks at Knock the Old Firm during the week, and I was asking him about Dundee, the Motherwell game at Dundee, and he was telling me that Dundee deserved to win. So I'm going to stick in the fence here, and I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw.
You're going for a 1-1 draw, Struan?
I've also got a 1-1 draw written down here.
Well, I'm going to go for a first away win of the season for Motherwell. I'm going to go 2-1 the well at Livy. And I've got a few Livy fans who follow me on Twitter, so sorry to all my Livingston pals. But also I want to give a big shout out to my Motherwell supporters as well. Sticking in the Scottish Premiership, big game on Sunday. Hibs are away at Dens in the early kickoff live on Sky Sports. Struan, how interesting a game is this? Because Hibs have kept hold of Martin Boyle. He's signed a new contract this week. That'll give them a bit of confidence going into this match at Dundee. Could be an intriguing game, this one.
Yeah, I think definitely, as you say, Martin Boyle signing a new contract was huge. A lot of Hibs fans, including myself, were very worried when the news broke of a potential Aberdeen bid. But it's good to see he's committed his future to the club. I think the victory over Kelty at the weekend is also very significant. I think a lot of people had tipped that as a possible banana skin for Hibs, especially after the exit of Europe, the many question marks over Hibs' defence so far this season. But I think that sort of result can definitely put them in good stead. Dundee as well, though, they've had an okay start to the season. I am a bit worried about this one because, as I mentioned, Hibs' defence is not the strongest going into it, and I feel this is possibly not the worst timing for the Hibs to have a result like this. But with with the Christian Doidge injury is what I'm trying to get to here. Sorry, it's pretty poor timing for that one. It's going to have to be Kevin Nisbet, and I think that's the potential worry for Hibs, is the fact that if Martin Boyle is not scoring, Kevin Nisbet hasn't made the best start to the season, it could be a bit dangerous, and you never know how Dundee could potentially change the game. I mean, I'm feared of a Jason Cummings goal. That's in the back of my mind. That would be almost poetic, but yeah, I still fancy Hibs to win this one. I've got 3-1 to Hibs written down because I do think Dundee will score, but I'd still fancy Hibs to have enough to get this one. And McGuinness, he's not stopped scoring. I'd expect him to be on the score sheet.
David, Dundee don't go into this in great form. They just got battered 6-0 by Celtic last time out in the league. But they did win against Motherwell in the Cup. What do you think? I mean, Strone's thought Hibs will win. I am actually going to go 2-2. I think it'll be a very entertaining game at Dens. I think Dundee can get something out of this game. What do you think?
I think the big thing from Hibs' point of view is stopping Paul McMullen, because I mean he's been in tremendous form since signing across the road from Tannadice. I mean, teams are fearful of Paul McMullen. Jason Bates kind of acknowledged that view as well with regards to the way he plays. I mean, every game I've probably watched Paul McMullen, because I've watched Dundee on multiple occasions now, and every game I've probably watched Dundee, Paul McMullen's always had an assist for a goal, which tells you everything you need to know about the quality of player. But I do feel that if you stop McMullen and you stop Luke McCowan from Ayr United, I know there's a few Ayr United fans on this show tonight, so hello guys. And if you stop likes Jason Cummings, I feel Hibs have got half a chance, but I'm going to go for a 2-1 Hibs win.
Let's move into League One. Falkirk are at home to Clyde. Just very quickly, David, give us a scoreline.
Falkirk have started the season very well compared to, as I alluded to earlier, Clyde haven't, although they got a good win over Alloa. I'm going to go for a solid 3-0 win for Falkirk this weekend.
Struan?
I've gone for a 3-1 win to Falkirk this weekend.
I've gone 2-0 Falkirk. I think Clyde will put up a bit of a battling display, but I think Falkirk have too much quality and will win this game. And finally, David, you'll be at this game. Elgin against Forfar. This could be a big game in League Two.
Maybe. I don't know yet, but I'm going to go and say 2-1 Elgin.
Struan?
I'm going to go for a 3-3. I just want a high-scoring fixture. I mentioned at the start of it, I'm going a bit risky with a few predictions. I'm hoping for a high score anyway. I'm
going to go for 1-1. I think Elgin have maybe turned the corner in recent weeks, and I think they might get something in that one as well. We are just about coming towards the end of the show. It is almost full time in Baku. Karabakh still leading by a goal to nil. We are into the 96th minute in Baku, and it's currently half-time in Austria, where St Johnstone lead 1-0. Just before we wrap up, guys, what a sensational first half by Callum Davidson's side in Austria. I'm
noticing through Eric Nicholson of the Courier that Xander Clark has been tremendous both at the start and the end of the half with regards to saves. And Xander Clark's been a pivotal figure for St Johnstone throughout the years, and he continues to be a pivotal figure for St Johnstone. I mean, on Sunday, for any St Johnstone and Arbroath fans listening in, Elliot Parish started and goal at Gayfield Park on Sunday afternoon. And then Xander Clark was brought on in the 190th minute to go and help St Johnstone and a quarter-final place in the Premier Sports Cup. So it just shows how pivotal he is to St Johnstone.
Yeah, absolutely. Struan, what have you made of that? I mean, St Johnstone were very impressive against Galatasaray. They did end up getting beat, but they did put a lot of smiles on a lot of neutral Scottish football faces, and they're doing it again in Austria.
It's absolutely fantastic. I couldn't believe it when I saw the notification pop up on my phone to say that Kane had scored. I was just blown back. I didn't think they were going to get anything from this game over the two legs. I did fancy LSK to go through, but it's absolutely great. And that's the theme of this St Johnstone team, isn't it? Whenever we write them off, they tend to prove us wrong, and long may it continue, because they're just such a likeable team at the moment. And I think Xander Clark's a really interesting one because he's been fantastic this season.
And very last point, because it is full time in Baku, Karabag have beaten Aberdeen 1-0. Just very quickly, guys, it's not a disastrous result this for Aberdeen, even though they have lost tonight.
No, I don't think so. I mean, it's a respectable result for Aberdeen. I know you touched upon it on your Twitter that and better than 2 weeks kind of curtains out for Aberdeen, so it's a respectable result for Stephen Glass's side. But back on to St Johnstone very briefly, and this is a big half coming up for St Johnstone. If St Johnstone can go and get the win, massive.
Yeah, absolutely. Struan, last point to you.
Yeah, I think that's a good result for Aberdeen. Karabag have got a lot of experience in Europe, to be honest. Going back to Bataudry on a good quality pitch, I think that's definitely a factor to this one. I think the injury to Considine will be significant, but I think overall, it's a lot better than it could have been for Aberdeen, to be perfectly honest, given how the match started.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we've just about bang out of time for another episode of the State of Scottish Football podcast. I have been Dr. Grant Campbell. He has been Struan Garvey. I've done it again with my hands. And David Smith at the bottom as well. Thanks very much, fellas, for your company tonight. Thanks to you all for tuning in to another episode of this show. And I hope you enjoy the rest of your week. But until then, from all of us here